I've been really enjoying walking through Exodus with you, and we've come to our second last lesson. And we are going to be encountering Moses while he is on the top of Mount Sinai. Let's just locate ourselves previously. This would be review. Previously in Exodus 24, it said, "Then Moses entered the cloud and went on up the mountain," Mount Sinai. They're in the wilderness. They've been delivered from slavery in Egypt. And he stayed on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. 40 days and 40 nights in the presence of God. Elsewhere, we're told his face was glowing after this was over. It was an amazing time. And two things are happening during this time. First of all, God is giving the people of Israel the terms of the covenant. So we have the stone tablets, especially with the 10 commandments on them. Covenant, that's the terms of this new relationship with God. We call it today the Old Covenant, which points to the new covenant in Jesus. And then, while he's up there for these 40 days and 40 nights, he's also giving him instructions for the construction of the tabernacle with its curtain in its holy place, with the Ark of the Covenant, and with all of these other things like the table of presence and the lampstand and the altar of incense and the sacrifice altar and the laver as you approach the tabernacle. All of these, this is review, pictures of Jesus as he would bring a new covenant into us. So in these 40 days and 40 nights, the instructions and the content of the Old Covenant and the 10 Commandments and the layout of the tabernacle are being given to Moses. Now, when the people, and we now come to chapter 32, which sort of picks up the storyline. When people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, I mean, so long. I like to think he was up there for 40 days. That was 39 days too long as far as the people were concerned. And they gathered around Aaron. Remember, Aaron was Moses' brother. He was Moses' mouthpiece because Moses was insecure about his own public speaking. And Aaron was also a Levite, and he became kind of the high priest for Israel out in the wilderness. Aaron, the priest, they gathered around Aaron, and they said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. For this fellow," I mean, what, this fellow? This fellow, Moses, who brought us up out of Egypt. We don't know what's happened to him. Well, so you're going, what is going on with these people? So all the people took their earrings, which is kind of abbreviated for all of their gold jewelry. They took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. Now, I just want you to notice two verbs here. Aaron took them after they were handed to him, all of this gold, and he made it. He took that gold and he made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with the tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." So Moses is gone. They've seen the thunder and lightning and cloud on top of Mount Sinai, but they are defaulting back to their life in slavery. They are defaulting back to something tangible. We can't see God. He's invisible. We can't see Moses. He seems to be gone. We don't know what happened to, quote unquote, this fellow who has already brought them so far. And so they are creating their own God. And they make the God a calf. And we know that the supreme deity in Egypt was a god by the name of Apis. And Apis, in one of the capital cities, city of Memphis, in ancient Egypt, was depicted as an ox just 3 years old. So this would be a direct association back to the gods of Egypt. Then the Lord said to Moses, so Moses is still up in the mountain. All this is happening with Aaron down in the valley. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people who you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt." Now God's not even saying my people who I brought out of Egypt. God's the one who brought them out of Egypt. But God is just saying, they don't want me, I'm done with them. And so he says to Moses, your people who you brought up out of Egypt, they've become corrupt. Deep spiritual drift. We see drift a lot in Christians today, and we see corruption in leadership, which would also begin to happen here. They have been quick. Our hearts can sometimes be so quick. As soon as we're disillusioned, as soon as we can't see evidence of God doing something in my life, we turn away from what I've commanded them. And they have made themselves an idol in the shape of, yes, that calf, which was so significant. So God's telling this to Moses. And when Moses hears that word calf, he's going, oh no, they have gone back to what they had in Egypt. They just want something tangible they can see and touch and supposedly depend on. And when Moses approached the camp, so Moses comes down from the mountain, when Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned. And he threw the tablets. I mean, this is strong. His anger burned emotionally, and physically he threw the tablets out of his hand. These are the tablets with the covenant that God was making with the people, with all the terms of the covenant, especially the 10 commandments. You keep these and I will bless you. You break these and I'll abandon you. I mean, all the terms of the covenant. He throws them out of his hand, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. And the fact that they break is really significant because Israel has broken the covenant already. This is the old covenant of the Old Testament. This is why we need a new covenant, the new covenant in Jesus, where Jesus' body would be broken. And God would say, I'm making a way to give you forgiveness and favor, to save you, even when you've broken all the terms of the covenant. Even though you're guilty, I've come to forgive you. And so in some ways we see a shadow of the new covenant in Jesus that is about to come. But first of all, Moses has to have a heart-to-heart. We might say today, Moses had a come-to-Jesus meeting with Aaron. He said to Aaron, what did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin? And Aaron, like maybe a boss you've had, or maybe even you've been tempted to do, to protect himself, he's going to throw the people of Israel under the bus, and he's going to defer responsibility. He says, first of all, in verse 22, don't be angry, my Lord. You know how prone these people are to you. You know what these people are like. And then he said, they said to me, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow, there it is again, this fellow Moses, our fearless leader, this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. And so he's blaming it on the people. He said, you know what? They put all this pressure on me. And then the ultimate, say what moment? So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. And then they gave me the gold. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. I mean, you can't help but laugh at this moment and shake your head and roll your eyes and everything else. So what we have culminating here is, first of all, in terms of the heart of the people, serious compromise. When it doesn't seem like God's visible and God's doing what we think he ought to do, their loyalty quickly is replaced with idolatry. And Aaron, I mean, he is the picture of a totally inept leader here, a cowardly leader, a corrupt leader, where he takes personal responsibility. He deflects responsibility and turns it into blame and throws the people of God under the bus and said, I just threw the gold in there and out popped this calf. I mean, it's not my responsibility. Well, whether you're a leader or not, I think this is a good moment just to stop and reflect. Why do our hearts tend to drift away from God to other things? Let's just ponder a moment. Let's not even think about the leaders in our lives. Let's just think about our own hearts for a moment. Why do our hearts tend to drift from God and go to other things? Well, here's how the story picks up. Moses went back to the Lord and said, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made them for themselves gods of gold. But now, Lord, please forgive their sin. If not, then blot me out of the book you have written. Now, I've told you before that Exodus is a Jesus story all the way through. You know what? God's not going to let Moses pay the price for the people's sins. God would only let his own son later pay the price for all of our sin when he inaugurates a new covenant by which our hearts can be changed and we want to stay loyal to God. Then the Lord said to Moses, I want you to leave this place. We're now in verse 1 of the next chapter, chapter 33. I want you to leave this place, you and the people you brought out of Egypt. God's still doing this, the people you brought. And go up to the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's why we call Israel the promised land. That was the land that God had promised Abraham. And of course, they've been in slavery in Egypt for 400 years. Now they're in the wilderness. They've been delivered from slavery. They're on their way to the promised land. And God said, I will keep my promise. I will give them that land. I will go to the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. So go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you. Whew. I mean, I don't think we ever see a proposition like that anywhere else in Scripture. Because one of the greatest promises in Scripture is, I'll be with you. And here's God's proposition. You can have my promise, but not my presence. I'll take you up, I'll keep my promise, I'll take you into the land, but I'm not going with you. You can't have my presence. You know, I had a lady sit in my office one day, look at me and say, Pastor, I have no interest in a God who doesn't bless me. If he doesn't do what I want, if he doesn't meet my needs, if he doesn't keep his promises to me, I have no interest in who he is. And I'm so grateful for how Moses responded. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go up with us, do not send us up from here. This is profound to me. Moses' bottom line was simply this: we don't want your promise if we can't have your presence. I wonder if that's the bottom line in our lives. That God, beyond whether you seem to be answering my prayer today or not, I want to know you and I need your presence. Because the greatest promise is indeed in Scripture, I will be with you. I will be with you. Not just I'll do good things for you. Not just I'll keep my promises to you. But I personally will be with you. And then Moses delves into the why behind the what. He said, we're not going another step unless your presence goes with us. Thank God for that. But then he tells us why. How will anyone know that you're pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? And then especially this next sentence. What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? I mean, let's just look at our churches. We handle money. Larger churches even hire staff. That's what businesses do. But what makes us different than a business? We teach people, but what makes us different than an educational institution? We gather people together in groups, in community groups, but what makes us more than just a social club? And you know, we try to make a difference. We join community organizations to help displace people and to feed the poor and things. But what makes us more? I mean, you can feed the poor, you can advocate for social and racial and economic justice, and not even believe in God. I mean, what makes us different as the people of God? It's that. It's this one thing, that God is among us. And that's why Paul describes the church this way in the New Testament. For those of us who are in Jesus, he said in him, in Jesus, the whole building, that's metaphor for the church, not a literal building, metaphor for the church. The whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him, you too are being built together to become what? A social agency? No. You are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. That's why Moses would say, unless your presence goes with us, don't take us another step. And so the Lord said to Moses, I'll do the very thing you've asked. I'll go with you because I'm pleased with you and I know you by name. The question is, do we know him personally and intimately? And that's more than God just doing good things for us and maybe even spoiling us. It means we know him and he knows us by name. So Moses said, Lord, would you show me your glory? This is hunger. This is hunger for God. What a powerful thing when we say, he doesn't even say, Lord, just keep your promise. He said, Lord, show me yourself. So it leaves us with a couple of questions I think we need to really take seriously. First of all, let's reflect on when the Lord might have first made his presence real to us. When's the time when maybe in your life God has made his actual presence real to you? And how do you think we can keep nurturing an ongoing hunger for God himself in our hearts? May God bless you as you ponder on these things.